Hello, how are we doing today? My name is Lynn David Livesey, and I'm your full spectrum Gnostic. And today we have a very exciting podcast for you today. Today we're talking, a lot of time we talk to metaphysical, but sometimes we go into other things than the metaphysical. We wonder a little bit. Today we're talking about something that might be affecting us very soon, and this is something which is very hot on YouTube and on some other networks. Especially on, people are talking about it, and so I want to bring you up to date on what is going on. There's something called the Las Palmas volcano, and this might produce a tsunami that could hit the east coast of the United States. And some people say this is conspiracy theory, and the government don't want us to know. But we're going to go into all of this and give you some background information. So the next time you see this on TikTok or YouTube, or they're mentioning it on CNN or whatever, you'll say, "Oh, I know all about that. That guy told me all about it." So we're going to look into this Las Palmas a volcano tsunami. Is this a real threat? Is this something that we should take seriously? Is this another end of the world thing or whatever? We're going to be talking about that right now. So let's dive into this and see what is going on. Okay. So some people haven't even heard about this thing, because this volcano is not even in the United States. This volcano is in the Canary Islands. A lot of people don't even know where the Canary Islands is. Okay. So let's go forward with our little slideshow a little bit, and we're going to show some things. We're going to actually show you where the Canary Islands are. And this is what they're talking about, is that if this thing happens, this is what you're making a big deal about. A giant tsunami could hit the United States and could do substantial damage along the East Coast. See, most people believe that only the West Coast is in danger of things like earthquakes, tsunamis, all kind of crazy stuff. But this one is a threat to the eastern seaboard. So let's go to let's go forward a little bit. Okay. First, we're going to do some background information. For those who don't know about tsunamis, period. And tsunamis are just a big wave of water. But tsunamis can kill a lot of people. And these are the 10 most largest tsunamis that we know about. Okay. And the biggest one, which happened in our memory, which a lot of people, you should all remember, back in 2004. That wasn't that long ago. You had a tsunami in Indonesia and Sumatra in the Indian Ocean. It killed 300,000 people. Most people don't even remember that. That was not 2,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. That was in 2004. How come we can't remember that? Because we're brain dead. We got other things other than mind. We're worried about a lot of other things. Okay, but we're going around the 10 largest. That was the largest that we know of. Then we going back to 1645. We had one in the island of Crete that killed 1645 BC, before Christ. That one killed 100,000 people. And that one ended an entire, we talk about, they talk about this a lot of time on YouTube and things, where they talk about the Egyptians was being attacked by these sea people and whatever, and they don't know where these sea people came from and what happened to them. And these sea people was the plague of a lot of the nations in the Mediterranean. They was conquering people from the sea, and then they just vanished. The tsunami killed them all. Okay. And you had the Medes and the Persians. They were mentioned in the Bible. And the Medes they were mentioned, and then they just not mentioned anymore. They got kind of wiped out back in those days. Okay. That was back 1,645 years before Christ. The third largest, this was in 1755. This hit Europe. Now, they don't know where this one came from, because it just hit the coast. It might have come from halfway across the ocean. But they estimated this killed between 60,000 and 100,000 people in Spain and Portugal alone. This was massive. Okay. Let's go on. Okay. And this is just the tsunamis that we know about. There's so many tsunamis because when you get back a long time ago, up until the last 100, 200 years, a lot of things could happen in the world. And if it didn't happen to, uh, in Europe or certain parts of the world, it nobody even knew about it. Okay, let's go up a little bit. This is number 4. What happened in Italy in 1908? That one killed 80,000. Okay. Number 5, you're in Chile and Peru in 1868. That one killed 70,000. Okay. In Taiwan in 1782, 40,000. See, how come we don't know about this stuff? Now, we're going to take some time and actually talk about this one. This is something that a lot of people don't know about, and you should know about. Krakatoa. Okay. Krakatoa only killed 36,000 people, only 36,000. But Krakatoa in 1883 was so bad. That was all the way in Indonesia, halfway around the world. Who cares? But that one had a monumental effect in the United States. How can something that far away? This is the problem with these volcanoes. Okay, when they go off. Krakatoa was a volcano that exploded. It killed 36,000 people in Indonesia. It basically, the Dutch. It actually put a lot of their civilization and things. I'm having some problems. I'm going to try to get everything back online. But while I'm doing that, here we go here. Let me try to fix my technical problems. But we're going to be talking about this while I try to figure what happened out here. Let's go to full screen here, and I'll try to fix my little technical problems in the background. Give me a second here and see if I can get back online. Yes, there we go. I don't know. We have these ghosts all the time that be trying to do things and whatever. But anyway, it's all good. We never gonna quit doing what we need to do, right? Okay, so we were talking about Krakatoa. Krakatoa created, even though that was in Indonesia, halfway around the world, it created in America in 1883 and 1884 what is known the year without summer. And there was no summer that year. It snowed all year in the United States. And it created food shortages. This is how dangerous these things are. We're not talking biblical days. A lot of people lived in America in 1883, 1884. And the Dutch, which ran Indonesia at the time, that devastated, that almost put almost wiped out all the Dutch. And they was doing everything over there in Indonesia. They had colonies over there, and they was doing a lot of rubber and doing everything. And that put an end to basically their colonies that they had over there. They lost almost basically everything. Okay. This was in 1883, 84, what is known as the year without summer. It snowed all year long. There was no summer that year. Okay. Farmers lost. There was no crops that year. And that put a dent in America. We survived. Okay, there was food shortages in America, but in poor countries, you could imagine, what happened. Okay. And if you live in places like Canada, which is already cold, And then you go a year without summer. That means the winter that year was super, super cold. Okay. So, and this made for these super red sunsets. And you had these red skies that stretched all the way to England. The sky was blood red. Okay. And that happened all the way in Indonesia in 1883. Let's go. So this is something that we need to take seriously. But for some reason, we have amnesia. We don't remember things that happen. And sometimes I wonder why, because today we try to forget what happened, even a few years ago. We don't like to think about the past. But the past and the future is one and the same. You cannot disconnect yourself from it. We are one and the same. Let's go to number 8. In 1498, in Japan, 31,000. 1707, Japan, 30,000. 1824, Japan, 27,000. Now let's talk about a lot of tsunamis which are not on the list. On the west coast of the United States, they know there was several tsunamis because from Indian legends. And some of these legends we know now exist. There's Indian legends. See, settlers didn't get to the west coast of the United States until the mid 1800s. Okay, as you know. The Indians was talking about long before the white man came that there was a big wave that destroyed everything. And of course we thought, those Indians are just savages. We don't believe in anything which is not documented in European history. Okay. But today, science know that probably in the 1700s, probably related to that 1704 tsunami that hit Japan, somewhere in the 1700s, a giant tsunami hit the coast of Oregon and Washington State and went several miles inland because the residue of the salt residue and things like that, and it left a mark on the land. Also in Australia, you have marks, especially in parts of Australia, which is desert, you have these marks that mark like where a wave or hit. When wave hit like in a desert and hit a mountain, it leaves a straight line. And for some of these things, we don't know how many hundreds of years ago that was. But for something to come in several, 100 miles inland and make a line along the cliff, that must have been massive. So do they only happen in the past or not today? Today, we're worried about a new one that we might be reading about very soon. This is off the coast of Morocco in Africa. You got Spain there, you got Angola, you got Algeria there, you got Morocco. These are some Spanish islands here. These are the Canary Islands. They are ruled by Spain. This one here on the further end is the island of La Palma. Okay. Maybe you should go over there on vacation. Okay. But this is way off the coast of Africa. Why do we care about what happens over here? Because, see, we've been worried about this when we first found out about this in the 70s. Let's talk about what we've been worried about since the 70s. If I can scoot this thing up a little bit. We're just scooting and scooting and scooting. Let's see. Okay, this is what the island of La Palma looks like. It is a volcanic island that was formed by a volcano who knows how long ago, thousands, millions of years ago. They think this entire area is the remnant of a giant volcano that erupted some 180,000 years ago. Okay. And this is how this chain of islands was formed. And this is one of the what they thought was extinct volcanoes. So we're going to go back in time, back in the 70s, when science first became aware of the problem of lost promise. They was thinking this was an extinct volcano. They was just worried about this seam across this island. And this seam they was worried about because this is a fault line. And this area has a lot of earthquakes. And they was worried about that if there was a severe earthquake, and if this fell into the ocean, that would create a giant wave. That's what people was talking about back in the 70s. What would happen if there was an earthquake on La Palma Island in the Canaries, and this part collapsed into the ocean? And in the 70s, people was worried about that. And they talked about it on Art Bell and other shows and whatever. It was something they talked about. And volcano and earthquakes happened, but nothing happened. We never had that big slide. But then starting this year, something weird happened. Okay. And this is what is alarming people today. Let's go forward a little bit. Here we go with our island here, as I was showing you. Let me blow this up so you can see it. And we have that line. And people been worried that if there is a problem, a severe earthquake, or the island became unstable, if all of this land fell into the ocean, it would create a giant tsunami wave. But Lynn, why would they worry about something like that? Don't we have other problems in the world? The reason this became, especially after the tsunami that killed 300,000 people in Asia, because that one was caused by an underground earthquake and slide. And that slide that was from an underground mountain is what created the earthquake that killed all those people in Asia. And they were saying that this mountain is very unstable, and this ridge that is this is unstable, that if there was an earthquake and if this became unstable and slid, it would create the same thing that happened in Asia. But instead of a lot of people dying in Indonesia and India and all those places, that wave would be heading towards the east coast of the United States, the Caribbean, and maybe into the Gulf of Mexico. So that was the fear. It was always back to the 70s, and then after we had the tsunami in Indonesia, people became more aware, more scared of this, and it was something that they was monitoring. And science been trying to figure this out, and how could we secure it and whatever. Nothing. They never was able to figure anything out, but they was just watching it. And then something bad happened. In our world today, bad things just happen for some reason. We don't always understand why bad things occur, but they just started happening. This extinct volcano, maybe it wasn't extinct. It came back alive. And at first, smoke started coming out, and we said, well, it's just a little active thing. But now this thing's been erupting for almost 3 months now, nonstop. And it was unstable before, But now so much lava has come. This thing's been erupting nonstop for almost 3 months. Massive amounts of lava have come out of this thing. Okay. And magma and everything else. And now it's creating it's already unstable. Now it's creating a dome, which is 3 stories tall, which is this barrier. So it was even now it's becoming even more unstable because all the lava is kicking up, is building up, and it's making this new ledge. And what we're afraid of, not an earthquake happening, now we're afraid of what happened in Mount St. Helens back in the United States back in the 80s when Mount St. Helens blew up. Mount St. Helens blew up. That was in the center of the country. But when Mount St. Helens blew up, half of the mountain face blew off. It killed 50 something people because they had time to evacuate. But the problem is that did not hit water. And that blast wave was so strong, it broke windows and things 10, 20 miles away. If that was to happen here, not only could you do, for the people that live over here on this island, but all of that, now you're going to get a super slide from the blast wave. All of that is going to hit the water and push it. So now it was unstable before, and now with almost 3 months of continuing lava activity, it is really making the island extremely unstable. And this is why a lot of us scientists are very nervous and cautious about this, what's going on in this island. Let me show you what it's actually doing. This is satellite photos. You can see the volcano is here, but it's actually cutting off a piece of the island. The island was already unstable, and slowly the lava is reaching towards the ocean. This was already very unstable and slowly is cutting and cutting and cutting. And as it cuts, it's making the walls higher and higher and higher. And they believe that this whole face, if this reaches the ocean here, all of this area could slide off. Or if this thing explode in one giant eruption, now it's just pouring lava like crazy like this. And the flows have destroyed over several hundred homes and, and properties at value. And they're basically had to evacuate this half of the island. This is a tourist island. A lot of, cruise ships and things stops there. But now basically the island, you're not stopping there now, because the ash is falling, and ash can kill you. Ash is, nothing but rock that has been turned into vapor. And this is the fear we have of Yellowstone, okay, which we're going to talk another time, and we talked about long before, okay, is that ash. When Yellowstone exploded last time as a deviation, we're going to deviate slightly. That exploded all the way in North Dakota, up in, way up there. Not in Dakota. It was over there, in that part of the woods going towards California and Idaho and the whole 9 yards. When that exploded over there in Texas, you had ash that was 5-6 feet deep. And that's at least 1,500 miles away. Okay. On a roof, since ash is rock that has been turned into powder, if you put an inch or two of ash on your roof, it will crush any house, because when ash mixes with water, it turns back into concrete. And your house is not made to support 1 or 2 inches of concrete. It will collapse down. And several feet of ash, nothing can survive. Now, if it did explode or slide, this is what they are afraid of. And this is that what we read about before when Spain and Portugal had that big tsunami before. You see how this wave is hitting the again? But most of this wave is going to radiate out. Okay. You see what I'm saying? Okay. And then let's go to the next picture. We're radiating out. One hour, 3 hours, 6 hours. So we're looking at 7, 8, 9 hours to get to the United States. That wave is going to come. This will be a replay of what happened in Indonesia. Okay. When you had that slide, it went all the way across the Indian Ocean. And it hit India, it hit Thailand, it hit everybody. It even hit parts of Africa. And that's the reason, most people was taken totally no surprise, because when you're getting hit by a wave which is thousands of miles away, it's not like you hear anything. You have to know what to look for and what to prepare for. And this is the only warning you're going to get. You don't have sirens going off, this and that, and everything else. Now, if you're in a cruise ship and this wave is coming across, you might survive, because this wave might only be 10 feet, 12 feet, 15 feet. They don't believe it's going to be monstrous coming across the ocean. But there is a problem. This, we're going to stop. And we're going to talk about this for a while. This is the eastern seaboard of the United States. This is what we call the continental shelf. Okay. This is where the good fishing is. This is where the water is hundreds of feet deep. This is where the ocean is 1,000 feet deep. So when you get that wave coming across, which is 10, 15, 20 feet of water coming across the ocean, when it hits here, it's going to get compressed. This is what will make the giant wave. Because the water goes from 1,000 feet deep to only several hundred feet deep to only a few feet deep when it gets there. And this compression of the wave has to can only go in one direction. It goes up. So that 15-foot wave, when it hit here, might be 100-foot wave. By the time it gets to the shore, it could be a 200-foot wave. This is why tsunami waves can go several miles inland. And if you get a wave 100, 200 feet high, which we have documented, okay, this is what they saw in Washington State. There is lines where they can see where the salt water came in 10 miles inland, 20 miles inland. Okay. They now see the evidence where now they can see where the old shoreline used to be, which is now 30, 40, 50 feet off the coast. That was the shoreline before the tsunami wave hit. Now, in some places, like in Europe, especially when you get off of Denmark and Norway and all that stuff, they got all those barriers because they have these big storms and everything. They got barriers and all kind of stuff. We don't have nothing, nada along here. People like to build their condos and their houses right along the coast where they're in inches and feet of the water. There's no protection. And the land is totally flat coming in. It's not like you have mountains like in England where you have the cliffs of Dover, where you have giant cliffs. This is all totally flat going straight into. There's nothing to stop the water. This is why, even with an earthquake, they was worried back in the 70s if there was an earthquake and there was a landslide that could produce a wave. But if you have this volcano been erupting for 90 days nonstop. If you get a massive eruption, not only would you get the giant slide, but you're going to get the force of that explosion. Okay. And the force of that explosion plus everything else. Oh my gosh. I'm not trying to scare people, but this is what they're talking about on YouTube right now. This is what a lot of on TikTok you're hearing about. This is what a lot of these shows, even some of the news shows now, are covering about what scientists are thinking about the possibility of this and what happened, because we can't build anything. It's too late. We can't say, well, let's build a seawall or let's do this. We did nothing. Okay. So this is their estimate of what would happen. Hold on, let me get my picture straight. In places like Miami, especially in Florida, or in low-lying areas of the Carolinas and places like that, that seawall, that wall of water is going to have nowhere to go. And if you have a wall of water which is 100, 200 feet high, and you just got totally flat land, it's just going to roll across the land until it run out of steam. And we like to build all kind of resorts and hotels and everything right along the coastline. This is the problem they had in Japan with the tsunami. They had no defense. At least they had sirens, because the thing that we have here that might help us, we don't have sirens, but if that volcano exploded right this moment, if you lived in Florida, you would have 6, 7 hours. But if you live in Miami and you get to notice that La Palma just exploded and there's a wave coming, you got 7 hours. What could you do in Miami, Florida, Fort Lauderdale, all those other places? If you live on those the barrier islands of the Caribbean, of the Carolinas, if you live in the Caribbean and you got 7 hours, you got 6 hours, what could you do? Are we going to say, okay, we're going to evacuate millions of people from the East Coast and bring them all in 20 miles, 30 miles, 50 miles away from the coast? By the time we got the broadcast and broadcast to everybody, we might be down to 4 hours. would it be better to create loss super panic where you tell people a giant wave is coming? You got 3, 4, 5 hours, and people are going to be acting crazy, doing everything, trying to get out of the way? Or is it just better just to maybe just get the what we call the important people out, the rich people out, the business leaders out, and just, you know, we're talking millions of people. We have no seawall. We have nothing. Totally flat. Totally flat. So, but I am not here to scare people. I'm just here to explain what they're talking about and the problem that we have. This is what they believe would be the damage, the most severe damage. Right there. All that red would probably be hit by the wave. If you was in the red, the wave would probably cover you. That does not mean that you could not survive it. But Florida, the wave would probably cross the entire peninsula. Because Florida is that flat. And with Lake Okeechobee and things down there, and you got down here with all the swamps here, southern Florida, the wave would just go straight across. Okay. By the time it got to the other side, it might only be 20 feet. On this side, it might be 100 feet, 200 feet, 20, 30 feet by the time it got to the other side. But that sweeping motion, and even if you was here, all of that debris being carried across. How many people live in this area? And if you told all those people, you got 4, 5, 6 hours, 7 hours, there's nothing you could do. And we have known about this problem since the 70s. And we have done nothing. At least on the West Coast, we have now put buoys out there to try to, if there's a tsunami coming, because, a tsunami, they can pick up. Buoys can. Those buoys are in the water, and they feel that wave go underneath them, and they're pulled up. There's nothing on the East Coast because all the threat have always been considered on the West Coast. Now, this is just the initial. Beside for the initial hit, the affected area would go way beyond that. This is what you'd be looking at probably in a place like New York City, New Jersey, Boston. Not a pretty sight. Let me blow this up. This is the affected area. I don't have too much to say. See, I live in Texas, way here. Even where I'm at, we may not be hit by 100-foot wave, I mean 200-foot wave, but where we hit, it might only be a 50-foot wave. But where I live, the land is totally flat. I only live like 20 miles away from the Gulf of Mexico. The land is totally flat. Where I live is probably around 12, 15 feet above sea level. South Padre Island is 7 feet above sea level. You can see where the Gulf, the Mississippi River, New Orleans, all of that. New Orleans is already 10, 15 feet below sea level. And then if you got a wave coming in, even if it's 20 feet, yes, the water is going to go back out. But what can we do? Now, since I scared you, let's talk about this reasonably. So you're not reselling your homes and this and that and everything else. Maybe you do need to make contingency plans because we will have a warning. If this happens, it's not like we live next door. This thing is going to come all the way across the ocean. Okay, so you will, if you're paying attention, you might get that warning. You might get that 4, 5, 6 hour warning that this thing is coming. But if you live in downtown Boston or in a major metropolitan area or New York City or Newark, New Jersey or whatever, you don't have a way of getting out of this. Okay. If you live in a area which is accessible and there's a way of getting out, I guess you could try to grab your little bag and try to do something, but you have to get the word. If you do not get the word until it's 20 minutes before it hits, that's the secret. You got to get word, right? And the further in you live this way, the more warning you have. So where I live, we might actually have a 10-hour warning. You get what I'm saying? Okay. So So what do scientists says about this? Before you start biting your nails and this and that and whatever, and scientists says that the problem of Las Palmas, that collapse is imminent. But what does imminent mean? See, when science say things, it's just like Yellowstone National Park. We're going to talk about it a different day. The eruption of Yellowstone is imminent. They're talking in geological time. It could happen anytime within from today to the next 100 to 300 years. It's imminent. The Earth is 4.3 billion years old. They know this is going to happen. It is imminent. But we're like day flies. We live and die so quickly. We can't even remember. A lot of people don't even remember the tsunami that was back 20 years ago. You get what I'm saying? We don't have long memory. So scientists is aware of this. They say that Las Palmas is a problem. That shelf is going to collapse. Now that you have all this volcanic activity in 90 days, and now the island is super unstable, it is imminent that there's going to be a collapse. Imminent. That could happen today, tomorrow, 10, 20, 50, 100, 200 years from now. Is imminent in geological times. Okay. That doesn't mean it's going to happen now. And I believe there are so many things that is happening in the world which is imminent. And this is why we're talking about this on the Spirit Realm Network. Okay, because then what does this do with the metaphysical? Because the world is changing. We keep hearing that our age is coming to an end. The world as we know it is ending. The Bible says that there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. That's the reason all around the world there's so many things which are imminent. the great earthquake that's going to hit the West Coast. Every scientist will tell you a 10 to a 12 magnitude earthquake is going to hit the Los Angeles basin. It is imminent. All of this stuff is a hair trigger waiting to happen. We don't know what is the catalyst that's going to make it happen. Is the analyst is the catalyst something that's going to make these rubber bands pop one at a time? Or will all these imminent disasters all over the world, there's countless of them, which are imminent, will they all pop at one time? Well, scientists is hoping that these rubber bands will pop one at a time over a long period of time. Okay. So if this happens, and then 50 years later, that other one happened, and then 50 years after this other one, we can make it through. Just like 2004, and now, if it happens now, this is 2021, we had that time. What we cannot take is all the rubber bands popping at one time. If all the rubber bands pop at one time, that's our ass. Okay. But all over the world, there are things that are imminent. That is the reason they say our world is ending. So, this is why we are preparing for the coming new age. And we are preparing mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, because in the new age, in this new world, in this new system, whatever you want to call it, it will be a new heaven and a new earth. Everything will be different. And this have happened before. This is what happened after the end of the Ice Age. Or what, if you believe in religion, we call the end of the Ice Age. I mean, if you believe in religion, it's called what happened at the flood of Noah's day. We're back to the volcano. It's still going off. If you believe in science, you call it the end of the Ice Age. If you believe in metaphysics, you call it the last polar shift. But the world totally changed. If you had a time traveling device and went back 12,500 years ago, you would see the world was totally different. The ocean level was 400 feet lower than it is right now. Okay. England and Europe was connected. Okay. The Gulf of Mexico basically didn't exist. You had where the Gulf of Mexico is, you had two lakes there. And you could walk from the Yucatan to Canada, to Florida, and from Florida to South America. Everything looked different. The animals was even a different size. Horses used to be very, very small. And beavers and things was the size of bears. Okay. During polar shifts, everything changes. So before you decide to go and sell everything, remember, we have people that look exactly like us have been on this planet for at least 100. If you believe in the Bible, 6,000 years. If you believe in, in science believe that people like us have been here for at least 150,000 years. At least 100,000. Some people say 150,000. Because the line get blurred. And the reason why the line gets blurred when you start going back, because these disasters kind of disturb the timeline. See, after this big wave, a lot of timelines are going to be disturbed because a lot of things are going to get washed away. You understand? This is why it says in the old books why the pyramid was created. They wanted a building that could withstand time itself, which is the enemy of everything, is time. See, we have nothing today that can withstand time. The only thing we have, if all those rubber bands was to pop at one time, there might be Mount Rushmore that might survive, and a few other things. But we make things out of metal. We don't make things out of monolithic stone. We make things out of very, thin pieces of concrete and rebar, and nothing's going to be around. They estimate, most cities, if man was to disappear, without even giant tsunamis, even most of our buildings would collapse within 50 years. Even most dams would collapse within 100 years. Okay. So there is some changes. What we're talking about in metaphysics, these are called earth changes. And there's going to be a lot of earth changes which are going to occur as we approach polar shift. Okay. And polar shift, or which will bring about the new age, the new kingdom, the new whatever, that is imminent. Okay. That's the reason our magnetic field is dropping. All this crazy stuff is happening. You got all these things that are imminent all over the world. But this is going to be some wild and exciting times. So we'll be able to tell our grandkids, for those who make it, and man will survive. We have survived through everything. Okay. And even though all those people got killed in the great tsunami, in what that just occurred, 20, 25 years ago. If you go to Asia now, you see no sign of it. We've built everything back. You get what I'm saying? Man is like rabbits. We get hurt. We're like kids. We get hurt. We cry. We get back on our bike and we keep riding. You just need to make sure that you are one of the survivors. And you need to keep your mind on these things that are going on, because there are kill zones and safe zones. And you don't want to be in those red kill zones. Okay. And there's a lot of maps. And today the Bible said before the end come, all knowledge will be increased. So it's not like they're keeping this stuff secret. See, the secret societies might have known about this stuff, and today everybody knows about everything. You just got to open your eyes. Or you don't have to. Right? The choice is yours to make. But you're running out of time, and I'm running out of time. Okay. In closing, the Bible did say that in the end there will be a time that there will be an absence of the word, because a lot of people are getting tired. This is why my podcast is not around like it used to be, and a lot of people, because no one cares. Everybody, they just want to be, as it says in the book, they was being married and given in marriage up until the rain started. I guess that's what we're going to do now. And they're going to be partying and laughing, having pachangas and doing everything else and having a wonderful time until the big wave comes. Okay. So you just need to be aware. Okay. But the world as we know it is coming to an end. And you need to open your eyes, and you can be a part of this new system and be a part of man's glorious future that these time travelers tell us is waiting on the other side. But we have to cross to get there. I'm Lynn David Livesey, your full spectrum Gnostic. I'm out of here. Thank you so much. Watch the other shows on the Spirit Room Network, and I look forward to seeing all of you again very soon. Bye.